Hello and welcome to Mangum News. I'm your host, Elijah Mangum. This week we'll be discussing the end of the Afghan War, Hurricane Ida, Florence High School's rivalry game against Richland, my review of both What If Episode 4 and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and my exclusive interview with U.S. Congressman Michael Guest. Without further ado, let's begin. Despite hundreds of Americans still stranded and equipment abandoned, the U.S. troops have fully evacuated Afghanistan on Monday, meeting the August deadline set by the Taliban. This marks the end of the war in Afghanistan, the longest war in U.S. history that lasted 20 years following the events of September 11, 2001. We are here not far from the Mangum Studios headquarters in Florence, Mississippi. It's Monday morning and we are still feeling the effects of Hurricane Ida. It is quite mild here. All we have is just a little rain and some mild wind gusts. However, other areas across the state and the surrounding areas have received flooding, damage, and power outages, most notably the Mississippi Gulf Coast, New Orleans, and Baton Rouge. We are blessed that Ida did not cause as much damage as Hurricane Katrina did 16 years ago, as predicted by some. We will continue to keep others who were less fortunate in other parts of the state in our thoughts and prayers. Florence High School held their annual rivalry game against Richland High School on Friday night. Florence won against Richland 33-27. This is the 17th year in a row that Florence has defeated Richland. Next week, Florence will stay at home facing off against McGee. This was another big week for Marvel as both the fourth episode of What If and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings premiered. What If Episode 4 asked the question, what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? In this timeline, Doctor Strange loses Christine Palmer in a car accident instead of damaging the nerves in his hands, with universe-shattering results. The show continues to deliver beautiful animation, with this episode in particular diving into the darker side of both Doctor Strange and the Ancient One, while also delivering a shocking cliffhanger. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings debuted number 1 at the box office, grossing over $140 million globally in its opening weekend. Shang-Chi delivers with great martial arts action sequences, fight choreography, visuals, good performances, most notably Awkwafina and Ben Kingsley, and a script full of humor and heart. This film is at its best during its grounded action sequences and emotional moments of character development, but begins to suffer a little bit once the story expands into the supernatural with little setup and overuse of CGI.
Hey Elijah, how are you this morning?
How are you this morning?
Man, I'm great.
All right?
Yes, sir, doing well. Glad we're finally able to get this to work today.
Yes, I am too.
Where are you in school, Elijah?
I'm going to be going into be a freshman in college.
All right, what college you going to?
I will be starting out at Holmes Community College.
All right, you're going
in
to be
Richland.
there in Richland, the Richland campus? Yes, sir.
And then I'm going to go to MC after that.
What's your long-term plan and goal? Do you know yet?
Yes, I want to go into communications and do broadcast journalism. My goal is WLBT.
All right. Well, look, we need you. We need you to be the next Burt Case out there. You're a hard-hitting journalist.
And I'm so thankful that you are glad to do this. And I've heard a lot of great things about you from my grandparents, Henry and Mabel. and they very much think a lot of you. So
Well, thank you for saying that. And when they at church told me about you, and I said, look, if it's your grandson, I'll do it. I wouldn't do it just for anybody, but I said, if it's your grandson, I'll be more than happy to help.
all right, so we're gonna start with about we have about 5 questions here, and
Yes,
we're
sir.
gonna try to get through them as soon as we can.
Yes,
So
sir.
the first one is describe your journey to being elected to a U.S. congressman.
You know, I grew up in Rankin County, attended Brandon High School. From there, Mississippi State University undergrad, Ole Miss Law School. So I'm politically correct as far as that goes, and having both of my major universities covered by attending and having a degree from both. But as I got out of law school, my last semester of law school, I had the opportunity to do an internship in the district attorney's office in Brandon there for Rankin County. And I really fell in love with the job that the prosecutor's office was doing. And so after taking the bar, I was able to secure an entry level position there in the district attorney's office, parlay that into ultimately an assistant DA, and did 12 years as an assistant deputy prosecutor in the office. And then really felt led to run for office. And so I ran for the position of district attorney, was elected for 3 terms. And while serving there, I also got to be good friends with my predecessor, Congressman Greg Harper. Greg Harper is from Pearl. I'm from Brandon, so adjacent communities. Greg was an attorney prior to running for Congress and actually did some municipal prosecuting. And so Greg and I knew each other professionally. Also served on some Republican boards together. And so when Greg got elected to Congress, I really began to follow national politics more and developed an interest in that. When Greg made the announcement that he was not going to run for office again, I really felt led that would give me the opportunity to better serve more of the state of Mississippi. I felt like during my time in the DA's office, I had been able to see that Madison and Rankin counties were great places to live, worship, and raise a family, to work with our law enforcement to keep our communities safe. But I thought that this gave me some ability to really have more of an influence and an impact to help the 3rd district, but really the entire state of Mississippi. And so I spoke with my family about it, prayed about it, ultimately came to a peace that this was what felt like I was being led to do. Had a very crowded primary field that year. There were 6 Republicans, was able to make the runoff, then was successful in the runoff, and then won the general election that November against a sitting state legislature. Since that time, have been in DC, been blessed to have a great staff, and currently in my 2nd term representing Mississippi's 3rd congressional district.
And to that point, what now that you have been elected congressman and been doing it for 2 years now, what does a day in the life of Michael Guest look like?
You know, I wish I could tell you that you know that there was an average day, and it just depends a lot whether I'm in the district or whether I'm in DC. The days that I'm in DC, those days really begin very early in the day. Generally somewhere around 8 o'clock, sometimes even before that. There'll generally be a breakfast that I'll attend, meeting with individuals. A lot of people from Mississippi come to DC. So that gives me the opportunity to meet with constituents to talk about issues. We routinely will have committee hearings throughout the day. I serve on Homeland Security. I'm the vice ranking member, so that makes me the 2nd highest Republican member on that committee. And so I have a lot of responsibilities with that committee, preparing for committee hearings, preparing for markups, doing outreach to other committee members. Also serve on transportation, infrastructure, and ethics. So serving on 3 committees, it is not uncommon. Earlier this week, I had all 3 of the committees met the same day. So began the morning at Homeland, then transitioned over transportation infrastructure, and late in the afternoon had an ethics committee meeting. thrown in there as well is there are going to be votes which are spread out throughout the day. And so many days, my days begin before 8 and they won't end until, 8 or 9, one day this week, 10 o'clock, as we had votes that went well into the evening. When I'm back home, I'm traveling throughout the district. Our district is 20 plus counties in the 3rd Congressional District. It runs from Starkville, comes down to Meridian, part of Clark County, goes over to Metro Jackson, goes down to Brookhaven, Macomb area, and also includes Natchez. So you've got the far southwest part of the state. So a very large area geographically. We do our best to be in as many places as we can. So when I'm home, I'm often traveling throughout the district, meeting with elected officials, community leaders, business leaders, making sure that I understand the needs of the 3rd District. So when I return to Washington, I can be a more effective member of Congress.
So obviously, we're being in Congress, you vote on a lot of key issues. And so I wanted to basically the next 2 questions. One focuses on the key issue. What do you think is the biggest issues facing our country and our biggest issues facing our state? What do you think is the biggest issues facing our country today?
As a nation, I think we've got to look at several things going forward. Some of the things that I'm focused on and concerned about. We're beginning to see the rise in inflation because of a lot of the spending that Congress has approved during the COVID era, and the last Democratic spending bill, which was roughly $2 trillion. We're beginning to see a rise in inflation across the country, and that affects everyone every time they go to the store and purchase anything. So whether you're purchasing fuel for your car, whether you're purchasing groceries for your home and your family, whatever you're buying, inflation is a tax on everyday individuals. And so we're starting to see inflation beginning to rise, starting to see violent crime continue to tick up, seeing attacks upon law enforcement. I know when I'm home, we're in the Jackson media market, and we're seeing some of the violent crime that is rising in not only in Jackson, but in some of the rural parts of our community. Very focused on what we're seeing along the southwest border. We have seen a surge of immigrants along the border since the beginning of the year after President Biden was not only elected, but as he was being prepared to be sworn in. We have seen an increase in illegal immigrants coming into the country. And now we've seen a rise in the Delta variants of COVID and the impact that is going to have in our communities. So those are some of the many issues that are facing our country right now. One of the key things that Washington is discussing is a possible infrastructure package. And of course, that is also important to Mississippi to make sure that we have good roads, we have good bridges, that our water and sewage systems throughout our communities are able to handle the capacity that they need to. And then we're going to continue to push for things such as rural broadband. In many parts of Mississippi, they still don't have access to high-speed internet. And that has become much more of a necessity and not a luxury anymore, as more people are going to school from home, as they're working from home, shopping from home, worshiping from home, actually seeing their doctors through telemedicine. We see that rural broadband is extremely important to the people of Mississippi. And so those are some of the issues that we are going to continue to watch, and some of the things that we're going to advocate for on behalf of the people of our state.
Anything else from particularly revolving around our state that you think are key issues?
I think right now, particularly infrastructure is something that is vitally important to the state of Mississippi to make sure that there is that state-federal partnership and that there are proper resources to make sure, one, that we not only build out our proper infrastructure, but also that we maintain that. And that's something that we've got to remember. If we're going to invest in infrastructure, there's an initial upfront cost, but there's also a long-term maintenance cost. And so those are things that we're going to have to deal with. Also, the national debt, we've seen our national debt continue to grow here in Washington. Our spending is to the point now to where we're going to have to pull back And we can't continue to add to the national debt. We can't continue to make purchases now that you and younger generations are going to have to be paying for 20, 30, 40, 50 years later.
And the final question is something that my grandparents have told me a lot about, is how do you think your Christian faith has impacted your political career?
You know, I wouldn't be standing where I am today, without knowing that this was God's plan. And like many people, I never expected to be here. But throughout my daily walk, I trusted that God had a plan in my life. That He had a plan in my life when I got to school and the degrees that I chose to study. I believe He opened doors for me to get a job in the district attorney's office, which then helped kind of lay the foundation or the groundwork for me to be able to run for this. And so throughout my life, my relationship with Christ has been extremely important in the decisions that I make. Many of the decisions that I make while in DC, those decisions are made not only after consulting members of my staff and others, but they're made after prayer, to make sure. And my prayer is that the decisions that we make here, the things that we do in Congress, will ultimately benefit our community and bring honor and glory to Him.
I feel the same way about my faith and, what God has done, and feel like He's opened so many doors from the career I'm wanting to go into. And I've been able to be involved with being and connected with people, not only like you, but also I have people like at WLBT, I've been able to have the privilege of interviewing and meeting Maggie Wade and Marshall Ramsey and people like those. And I feel like that there's been just so many doors opened up to people in pretty important places to really help. And so I feel like that the standing on the authority of God's word and what He has put, I feel like is supposed to be my first thing. One thing that Maggie Wade told me was when I asked her as a Christian, what is her advice to me? And she told me that basically to keep God first and don't compromise.
Well,
And so, and I feel
advice.
I feel like the Lord is leading me to be a godly influence in the journalism world.
Well, I would tell you that the advice that she gave is great advice. We've got to continue to put the first thing first, and the first thing is God and our relationship with Him, and then everything else should fall behind that.
Yes, I completely agree. Thank you so much for.
Yes, sir, Elijah. Thank you for taking time, and appreciate you. And again, you've got great grandparents that are wonderful, and I hope you know what great folks they are. I know they've had a huge impact on your life to this point, and so excited about what you're doing. Excited to see what the future is going to hold for you, and I hope one day we do this interview and you're doing this as a reporter for WLBT or Fox News or wherever your path may take you. And so I hope we can continue this relationship down the road. That's all we have for this week. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks for watching, and we'll see y'all Saturday. Happy Labor Day!